I'm the golden god. Do people scream that line at you? Are you still known for that? Or?
No, I mean, occasionally. I guess now because I'm older, they'll come up and go, oh, the golden god. My typical response now is the olden god.
Billy Crudup, I am so excited to finally have you in the studio, talking to you, celebrating you about your amazing body of work. Jay Kelly, obviously, but it has been a long journey for me. And I know I told you a little bit of this at the Telluride Film Festival, but I was that theater nerd, film, total cinephile, loved movies, loved theater in the 90s in New York. And you were the biggest thing in a little show called Arcadia that Tom Stoppard, his new play, directed by Trevor Nunn, the coolest guy in the world, obviously. And you were the discovery of Manhattan at that time. Now, I'm sure you remember this because you lived it, but in our little world, it was really exciting, right? And this was a role that you got right out of NYU, right out of the Tisch School of the Arts, right? Is that what it's called?
Well, I just want to
School?
let you go on and on. I mean, that's just, this is, it's a bit like a memorial, but I'll take it. Yes, I was about 6 months out of school, and we spent a lot of time preparing for complicated work on the stage. And so to have an opportunity to use all of those resources immediately was a pretty incredible and rare thing. And I was aware of it. All of my friends were actors at that point, and out of acting school, nobody was really getting the opportunities that I was getting, just in terms of auditions and parts, and that was one that was pretty clearly going to be the part of that year if you were going to get it. It was so well constructed and one of the most beautiful plays written that if you don't screw it up, you're going to do okay.
And I will continue my journey here with you. Oddly, it didn't go to your head because then you got a movie, Sleepers, Brad Pitt, Jason Patric. That was a huge movie again at that time. Murderer's Row of young male actors were cast in that film.
And I got to hang around Robert De Niro and Dustin Hoffman, people that I had, grown up watching. They were legends. So.
And then Inventing the Abbotts. I'm really going down.
Oh, no, I love it. Are you kidding?
So then that leads me to me as an assistant at Vanity Fair, trying to get you on one of our Vanity Fair Hollywood covers.
Didn't we do a photo shoot for that?
We did eventually get you for something, but you would never say yes. And I have known Simon Halls, your rep, forever. We came up in the business together, and he can vouch for this, always asking. He's like, I don't know what to tell you, Chris. He just doesn't want to do press.
Yes.
And I'm like, but look at that face. Look at that hair. Oh, my God. And I'm looking at you now.
That was the problem, I think. Yes, I was concerned that there was going to be a bigger draw from magazines than from the creative community. So I resisted it as long as I could.
You did, right? It was intentional.
It was intentional. It was interesting because I first met Simon outside the stage door at Arcadia. And he said, you're probably going to need a publicist because the producers were starting to get requests from people to do covers and promote. And I said, no, I'm good. And he said, well, are you going to take the calls at home? And I said, well, I don't want to take the calls. Do I have to take the calls? He goes, I'll be your publicist for free for the first year. We'll see how it goes. And I said, okay, so you're just going to say no to everything. And he said, yeah, I mean, I can do that. And I was like, great. We got a perfect relationship to start.
Oh, dagger to my heart and soul. Yes.
You didn't need me.
And then you made one of my favorite films, which is Without Limits, where you played Steve Prefontaine.
If you're a runner, you'll appreciate what Robert Towne has to say about running. And he did it in Personal Best as well. Mm-hmm. He just thought running was a phenomenal metaphor for life and would constantly quote writers that echoed that same sentiment. Like when I was asking for direction about certain things, Robert, how do you want me to pursue that particular intention? Oh, Rudyard Kipling once wrote, and I was like, oh, no, that's not going to help, dude. But the people who are runners understand how it's a wonderful metaphor for endurance, for resilience, for daring. There's the expression of your own personal motivations. That was what Pre was most interested in, running as an execution of his internal fortitude. And Robert loved that. And so to get to be a part of something that was so physically rigorous and had some interesting thought behind it, and work with Donald Sutherland and Conrad Hall, he was the DP.
Had you ever run before? Had you ever watched yourself run on film?
No, I had not. I wrestled when I was in high school, but I was not particularly good. The year that I didn't wrestle, we won state, which gives you some idea of what kind of asset I was to the team. But I loved sports and I loved competing. When I started to train for this, I realized how difficult it was to organize your body in the way that Pre did in order to run. He had a very unique style of running. So yes, we had to do a lot of videotaping, watching videotaping. I was sort of the mind that I don't want to see myself on camera for fear that I might become self-conscious. So it was kind of a difficult exercise from an acting point of view, because you had to really break things down and become extremely self-conscious so that you could sort of build it back up.
That must have been a huge moment in your career because you were the lead of a film, so #1 on the call sheet. Donald Sutherland's not a shrinking violet. He's a brilliant actor, towering figure.
He was
right?
definitely not a shrinking violet. Incredible actor.
Incredible actor.
I have great fondness for him.
So for you, what did you learn and being on that kind of, I'm projecting now, I don't know the answer to this question, but I would just imagine that you had to learn a lot and got humbled a lot through that whole experience to then kind of, it probably set you up for the career that you've had, or I bet you go back to it a little bit and think about what you experienced
I don't think you're wrong
on.
about that. I felt way in over my head. And to be in a $25 million movie about a significant American athlete, directed by the guy who wrote Chinatown, shot by the guy who shot Bonnie and Clyde, produced by Tom Cruise and Paula Wagner for Warner Brothers, was kind of unbelievable. And he had a big chip on his shoulder. So I'm playing these scenes all day of a guy who's got a chip on his shoulder. He's not just acting the part, he performs it. So I sort of used that for myself, I think, in retrospect. I was kind of acting the part of someone who knew how to do the lead in a Warner Brothers movie. Because of that, I missed out on a lot of the learning. I think about what I could have asked Connie Hall rather than the way that I was combative about him. He was developing at the time what would become pretty commonplace, which is this laser technology where when somebody is focusing the camera, you've got somebody who's operating the camera, right? They're behind it looking through the lens. And then you've got somebody who is what's called the focus puller. They're making sure that everybody is in focus. If you've got a lot of bright light, the depth of field for focus is pretty broad. But if you've got low light, say for instance, Magic Hour, when Connie liked to shoot the running sequences on a very long lens, which means the camera's a huge distance away and it's a close-up on my face. The difficulty of maintaining the focus over a period of time is extraordinary. And so what he was trying to do was see if he could use this new technology that bounced the laser off of the target and then had a readout of the number of feet the target was away. And typically I was running at the camera. So you have a very narrow focus and I'm running a lot. Connie's trying out this new technology for what would be extraordinary shots, and I'm becoming incredibly cantankerous at the amount of time it's taking to manage this new technology. I wish I hadn't been so petulant then.
All right, so then the other big giant one that came shortly after that is a little film called Almost Famous, in which we are celebrating 25 years. Can you even believe that?
No, I can't. I mean, I can and I can't.
It's kind of amazing that we're still here and we can talk about it in a way that is so revered and loved. And obviously, Kate Hudson is still doing some of her best work now, 25 years later, as are you. But wow, was that movie a moment in time?
Cameron Crowe, for me, was just a part of my entertainment vocabulary growing up. Between Fast Times at Ridgemont High and Say Anything, Jerry Maguire, he was capturing a very particular kind of cinematic adventure, and I loved it. The writing was superb, and I hadn't played guitar before, so this was yet another example, Chris, of me being so in my own head about trying to do this right that I missed a lot of opportunities to enjoy myself at such a novel and beautiful experience. The number of people who were collaborating on that, John Toll was the DP, who was simply exceptional. But top to bottom, the number of collaborators, Nancy Wilson and Peter Frampton teaching us guitar and band. All the actors adored music and could play music. And so there was a joyful kind of vibe on set. I don't know if you've tried to learn an instrument as an adult. It is a mind meld. Your brain is out of whack. It's one thing to be cast as a musician if you're not a musician. It's another to be cast as an expert musician if you're not a musician. This guy is supposed to be at the peak of his powers.
Yeah.
Up and coming rock god.
It's like, I'm the golden god, right? Is that the line?
Yes, that's it. The golden god part was taken from Robert Plant. Those kinds of scenes were joyful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was a little precarious because the slope of that roof next to the pool was pretty steep.
Yeah.
I didn't feel exactly safe or comfortable, and I was supposed to be on acid.
Yeah.
So you kind of meant to dance around and be off balance. So there was a part of it that was a little dicey. But all in all, those kinds of scenes were just spectacular and fun to play. I got to, jump off the roof and
Yeah, totally.
be a maniac.
When you're going through airports and walking on the streets of New York, do people scream that line at you? Are you still known for that? Or?
No, I mean, occasionally. I guess now because I'm older, they'll come up and go, "Oh, the golden god."
Yeah.
I'm like, appreciate that. Thank you. My typical response now is the olden god. It happens to everybody.
Talk to me just about that, how that changed kind of the trajectory of your career and what you decided to do after the enormous success of that film.
Well, interestingly enough, when that came out, that was considered a flop. We lost money at box office. And since I was number one on the call sheet, that was
That's interesting.
a little bit of a downturn for the film roles that I was getting. However, I was getting some fantastic opportunities on stage. So I was taking every one of them that I could. I think Elephant Man was around 2002 or so.
Mm-hmm. You won a Tony for that one, right?
I was nominated.
Nominated,
for one, yes.
okay.
But that, again, was not a box office hit. In fact, they closed us on the day of the Tonys, so we had to do the red carpet. And they were like, "How's the show going?" I'm like, well, we closed it today, so not so good. I continued to really be the recipient of some fantastic parts. And I didn't mind taking them wherever I got them. I wasn't focused on a film career or a stage career or a television career. I was focused on having a career as a character actor where I would get better over time so I could sustain it. And I was getting those kinds of opportunities. So it didn't really concern me that it wasn't a success. It's always disappointing, and you're disappointed for the people around you. But I confess over time to see the number of people, particularly college students now, who still enjoy that film, mostly because their parents introduced it to them when they were younger. It has been extraordinary. It has been so much fun to have that kind of feedback for a movie that, at the time felt like, oh, maybe I screwed it up or we didn't do well enough. So, again, a testament to Cameron and his storytelling there.
Yeah, it's so great. And you did amazing amounts of theater, too. The one you won a Tony for was another...
It was called The Coast of Utopia. It was a Tom Stoppard
It was another
play.
Stoppard, right?
It was,
okay.
yes. It was a trilogy of plays about philosophers in Russia at the turn of the century. You wouldn't think that would be but it was a huge success at Lincoln Center and won more Tony Awards for a play than I think had ever been won before. Jack O'Brien directed it, and we did them in repertory, which means you do part 1 on a Tuesday night, part 2 on a Wednesday matinee, and part 3 on a Wednesday night. And then on Saturday, we would do a thing called the marathon, where we would start at 11. Then they would have a lunch break. The audience would have a lunch break. Each play was about 2.5, 3 hours. Then we would do part 2, and then there was a dinner break, and then they would come back for part 3.
Wow.
And it was an incredible event to be a part of in New York, I have to say, because they were packed. Those marathons were packed, and they gave out buttons that say, I survived the Coast of Utopia marathon. It was lucky for me because I wasn't actually in the third. My character died midway through the second. So I could take my Vespa home, make myself dinner, put my son to sleep, and then just race back up to Lincoln Center and take a bow and come back home.
Get back in your character's outfit and do it. I love that.
And Lincoln Center has been a wonderful supporter of me. I was just actually working with Jack again in January. We did a Henrik Ibsen play called Ghosts. It's been a remarkable experience as someone who loves New York, and I definitely consider myself a New Yorker. To be a part of such an incredible cultural institution producing that kind of material that's like peak for me.
Yeah, it was great. And also Jay Kelly was there as centerpiece, which is pretty amazing.
It was incredible. And again, like taking the train, getting out, you're right next to the opera and the symphony, and it just feels like you're at the center of American culture in a way that is unlike any other place I know. DC has a couple spots like that as well, but to have Jay Kelly there, having just performed there on stage, I was pinching myself for
Yeah.
sure. And that was another one, Noah, he's an institution. He's been making movies since I came out of school, and I've always loved his work, always wanted to work with him. And to get to premiere that in New York, or get to have a premiere in New York with Noah and of course George and Laura and Adam, it was special.
Yeah, I love this movie. And I said this to you in Telluride, and I'm going to say it now because we have a recording on. There's some spoilers here for listeners. So if you haven't seen it, don't listen anymore,
Pause.
or knowing that you're going to get some spoilers. But your character, Timothy, plays someone that is so pivotal in the life of Jay Kelly, played by George Clooney.
Noah talked me through his idea of him. We chatted really for an hour first because we'd never spent much time together. And we've got so much in common that it was just a wonderful conversation to have. And then he said, so let me tell you a little bit about the part.
Oh, so great. But that scene, it is like you have to land the plane on a head of a pin.
Yeah.
And if you don't land it, it's a big motivating factor for George's character that sets the film in motion.
I explained that to him. I said, are you sure you want me for this? Because if I screwed up, and the particular kind of acting that he was looking for in this scene, it's sort of anathema to the way that I work. So I kept coming up with other ways that I might phrase it so I could accommodate my own acting style. And Noah wasn't really budging. And
thank God. I'm Team Noah here. Thank God.
Nope, he was right. And given any opportunity to learn again, especially in your 50s, is an incredibly rewarding experience. And the fact that he kept sort of pushing me through the absence of changing the lines was an enormous gift. And when we were shooting it, I was actually doing a play in London. I worked on it quite a bit, but I had no real confidence that I could pull it off when the cameras are rolling. So I just said to Noah and George, forgive me, I don't know how long this is going to take, but I've got a lot of different things backed up. If it doesn't work, be a little bit patient with me in the beginning. They were just incredibly supportive.
And as an audience member, we're not sure where this is going because
For
at
sure.
first you're just like,
and it keeps changing.
Oh, you're like,
I mean,
oh, this is so cool. Oh, we're going to meet, but it's Billy Crudup. So there's got to be something coming here. This isn't random. And then you're at Chez Jay's and it's great. Drinks are pouring. And then all the tension goes into basically, can he read this menu? And it's so good. And audiences react like they laugh, they cheer. I mean, you've been in some of those screenings.
I have. It's so rewarding. I mean, Noah and I, George, we all look at each other like, oh, crap, that really worked. Good.
It really
so
works.
Happy.
How many takes in the end?
So method acting is the thing that the script alludes to.
Right.
Method acting, this is a long form process for people to study over years and years and years. He wants to use that to sort of pull off a trick. One of the tools that they use is something called sense memory, where you detail a personal experience that it might provoke the emotions that are adjacent to what the character is going through, and then you kind of substitute the two. You put yourself into an emotional state, and then you just use the words of the text. And that's a rather traumatic experience, I discovered, because ultimately I had to find some dark thoughts and memories to go to. But I tell you, once you turn it on, that spigot does not go off. I mean, we wrapped, and I was at home crying for another 3 hours. You'd have to ask Noah, but my memory of it is that we did at least 30 or 40 takes.
Yeah.
And he only did like one way this way and one way this way, and he's shooting on film, so it wasn't like 2 cameras. When we shoot the morning show, there's always 3 cameras.
Yeah.
So you feel a bit of the pressure and the tension, and the camera's slowly creeping in on you, and you know that you want to deliver at the same time, and the camera's right there. So it was a bit of a high wire act, but I felt grateful to have the opportunity to do it.
It paid off. The guy you're playing is so, I'm sure you've come across that person, super talented, from the time, like you said earlier at the top of the interview about how lucky you were out of school. You were getting parts, you were getting offers or auditions, and you were landing these big, meaningful roles while other people maybe just as talented weren't getting those offers. It is someone we're all kind of familiar with, right? Like,
no question.
Regardless of your profession, the one who got it and the one who didn't get it, and why did that person get it over this person that didn't get it?
Excellent point you're making, and I think it's correspondent to one of the themes that he's exploring, which is if you keep waiting for your great life to start, you're going to miss the life that you have. In our profession in particular, it always feels like you're at the slot machine and you're one tick away from the jackpot, because that happens to people. You see it happen to people. It's a very rare experience statistically, actually.
Yeah.
The most common experience is the one of the character that I play.
Right.
And even for successful actors, you go through those periods. I can guarantee you Leonardo DiCaprio has some roles that he wanted that went somewhere else. And this is one of the great actors of our time who does some of the most exceptional parts. Every single actor, they commit to something for 3 months and are then out of work, typically. Very rarely do you get to have sort of a year in advance. So during that period of time, in the quiet of no promise,
Yeah.
it's loud inside your head. The self-doubt, the insecurity, jealousy, those sorts of feelings are very familiar to
growing,
all actors all the time.
Growing inside. I interviewed Louis Partridge not too long ago, and it was great because I asked him because he plays the young you, right? And I was like, what was that like? I mean, did you guys shadow each other? And he told his great story about like how Noah just brought you and George in and you hung out, and he was living in fear. So he was having one of those young actor moments thinking like, oh my God, Noah's going to make me do a monologue, because he was making you and George do monologues.
He was. Noah had this idea that maybe George and I would play the younger versions of ourselves. Maybe not. Maybe the younger versions would play part of a scene and then the older versions would play the rest of the scene. So all four of us were trying to be prepared for anything and waiting for Noah's clarity about what he wanted to do. Those two, Charlie Rowe, who played the younger version of George, and Louis Partridge were both excellent. I can't tell you how incredible and lovely they were. Also, they're both British. They're doing perfect American accents and a lot of text and, a very tricky circumstance that Noah's written. I had incredible admiration for them both. They were so well composed and they executed it so beautifully. Louis is just such a sweet guy and a terrific actor, and it was a total pleasure. It was interesting to see that character that I played, as Louis plays him, he's about 4 inches taller than me. So clearly he shrunk over time. He was much taller than I was.
But he has the kind of wide eyes. I could see it when I was sitting across from him.
Yes.
Like, there's definitely, he has
a
the
definite
vibe.
resemblance.
Yeah.
He's just got 4 inches on me.
Yeah. Okay. That's right. You've done pretty well.
That's right.
Without those four. All right. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions that I ask everybody on the podcast. And one of them is about birth order.
Okay.
And it's my favorite question, because what about your birth order do you think has contributed to who you are as an adult? And I happen to remember these Crude Up brothers because you had an older brother, Tommy, who was super cute. So I just remember he worked at like MGM and everyone
still
was like,
is.
He's still handsome. But at the time, I haven't actually said his name out loud for probably a very long time. But I remembered it.
Yes, you did.
He was in the biz, and I don't know about the younger brother.
Yes, my younger brother, Brooks, he was also in the business for a while. He was a producer with Tommy at Tony Danza. My brother, Tommy, he moved up to New York with me when I was going to graduate school just to try to get a new start. He was tending bar, and someone said, "You're not tending bar anymore. You're coming with me. I'm a publicist at MGM." And he got into the business, and by virtue of his own charisma and agency, became a talent booker for Rosie O'Donnell, and then went on to produce and be a talent booker for several daytime talk shows in New York, and Rachel Ray finally. I would say that he and I were a year and a half apart. We were extremely competitive growing up. There was a bit of hesitation, I think, about what it was going to be like with the two of us in a small apartment in New York. But on the drive up, we had the U-Haul strapped to my Isuzu Trooper 2, and we just immediately became adult best friends. And it was such a magical experience, those 3 or 4 years on 65th and York. As my birth order...
so middle child, right?
Middle child, yes. Having Tommy as an older brother... And he was we always called him the coach. He always knew what was going on. He was going to take care of things. I had to be somewhat devious to get my way. I guess that built a kind of resilience. And then another feature of being the middle child for me, was there was a little bit of mediating. I could understand both of my brothers, understand my mom and my dad's points of view. I don't know if that is a product of being a middle child, but I have the capability to try to understand different points of view and find some middle ground.
All right. The other question is about, people talk about the fear of missing out. I wish I was there. Oh my God. So the opposite of that, what is the joy of missing out? So what are you so happy? And we know press and cover shoots and all that. That's already been established. Not anymore. Okay.
Now that I've had enough of a career, I'm not so protective of people being concerned whether or not I'm a character.
What is something that you just love not having to do?
Boy, what a great question. We could be here a while. I really don't know. I don't actually have an answer to that.
That's good.
What do some people say?
That's an answer. Oh, a lot of actors I find have social anxiety, so they don't really like parties, or they get nervous about, big crowds and things like that, and staying home and
I don't have a
things.
Consistent response.
Yeah.
My happy spot is probably watching some baseball with a guitar, six-pack beer, and texting my friends about the game. That being said, I like going to games too. So I feel like I've got a pretty good balance of things.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. So we've talked a lot about memory, a couple of great memories that you've had throughout your career. But is there any memory in life, and obviously you talked about method acting and touching on that for the part in Jay Kelly, but is there any memory that you can think of that was something that you go back to rather often that was a pinnacle in your life that you could share, like something that, this happened and...
Boy, that's another fantastic question. The thing that's coming to mind right now is I had this wonderful teacher in college, Peter Kaufman was his name, who taught a class called The Philosophy of Religion. You studied how different cultures came up with different religions at certain times to explain the world around them. And I suppose I'd grown up in somewhat of a conventional way, and then we had some religion in our lives, but I hadn't put much consideration into the philosophy of religion. And what it taught me was there were so many things that I don't understand, and that with a little bit of critical thinking and a little bit of application of curiosity, that a lot of things are comprehensible. And so it happens to me all the time with respect to fixing things around the house. I'll always say there's a manual somewhere and things are meant to work, so I bet we can figure out how they work. And maybe I can't be the one who fixes it. I don't have the skill set, but probably if I can't do it, somebody can, because things are meant to work. And I think it stems a lot from that class and from Peter's teaching.
Wow, so you're like my husband. You can read direction. You look for the manuals.
Oh, I'm very good
read
at
the
that.
directions.
That,
wow.
Yeah. IKEA, they try to screw you up, but I can beat down IKEA. Takes me a little while, but I'll follow
That
along.
is a serious skill, actually, because I think I can't read directions, and my husband can go through and.
I'm the tech guy in the
You
family. Whenever anybody has a bit of a problem, they at some point probably turn to me and ask me if I have a solution. Because actually, when Windows 95 came out, I used to like playing video games. I grew up on video games. Me and my brothers would go to the video parlor with the quarters and stuff. And Tommy and I had a video. I can't remember what console we had, but Windows 95 promised the notion that you could build your own computer with your own processing speeds and displays, etc. And this was happening at a time when I just made some money from Without Limits. So I was excited to buy computer components and try to put together a computer where I could play awesome games. So taking apart things I didn't always put them back together correctly. However, I did get to know some of the constituent parts of an early PC.
Wow. And yet you went into acting.
My son has a phenomenal engineering mind.
Does he? Okay.
Incredible. And we started doing escape rooms when he was about 12, and he became obsessed with them. His mom let him build an escape room in his closet that included some electrical engineering. It was spectacular. He really does. And he's now about to finish college and is a writer, director, actor. But I'm like, please get into engineering. Yeah. Somebody in this family has got to have a steady job.
Yeah, that's so funny. Well, you are also married to my favorite wife. And I have to say, love you, Naomi. She knows that. It's not a secret. But I loved her social game, let's say, in Venice on the red carpet. It was so nice to see you all dressed up. And I love her storytelling that she does so fast and so quick on that thing. It's amazing. And I love that she's putting you in front there. It makes me very happy. But she's great.
She most certainly is.
She's awesome. All right, Billy, thank you so much. It's great to see you. I can't believe this is the first time you've been on the pod. Hopefully not the last. I also love you
more.
In the morning show. You're excellent. A couple of those Emmys, a couple more awards on that.
And I have to mention, I'm about to do High Noon, which is based upon the film with Gary Cooper. Eric Roth adapted that for the stage.
Oh, my God. That's one of my favorite movies.
Another incredible creative force. Denise Goff is going to play the Grace Kelly part, and I'm going to play the Gary Cooper part. Thea Sherrick is directing it. It'll be at the Harold Pinter Theater starting December 3rd or 14th or something.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and I wanted to make sure to get it out there.
Oh, yeah, please. High Noon. I would never have thought, but it is so theatrical, actually. There's not that much sets. You're not really going anywhere.
We have a guy named Tim Hatley, who's our production designer, thoroughly brilliant. And so he's going to answer those questions for you about how to stage things like a scene with horses on a wagon and gunfights and trains. And
Oh, that's so great. There's some great female parts in that, too.
There certainly are, yeah.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Thank
I'm definitely going to come see that. But it's great to see you, Billy. And you are superb. And Jay Kelly, I love this movie. I love you in it. And thanks.
Thank you.